Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, SaaS for Industrial Automation, Breaking Down the Barriers. My name is James, and I'll be facilitating today's session. We have a lot of valuable information to share with you today, but before we get started, I wanted to go over a few quick housekeeping details. At any time during today's session, you can submit questions via the Q&A panel feature of your screen. We'll save questions until the end and get to as many as we can. If we don't get to your question today, we'll be sure to follow up with you post-event. This session will also be recorded and made available for replay after today's event. Now I'd like to welcome our speakers. Kepware translates customer needs into connectivity solutions for industrial automation and enterprise digital transformation. Emily Griffin, Senior Product Manager at Kepware, has been working cross-function with PTC and customer stakeholders alike to deliver valuable product features and has a background of 20 years experience in software strategy, operation and sales for the asset management, higher education, and hospitality industries. As the product lead for Kepware Plus, Emily has most recently been responsible for launching the hybrid SaaS control plane to Kepware's enterprise customer audience and setting value-based definitions for roadmap features and future functionality. Kyle Carew, Enablement Manager for Kepware, is the go-to technical and commercial resource for Kepware's technology partners, international distributors, and North American resellers. He has almost a decade of experience in industrial automation with heavy focus on industrial networking and communications, SCADA, HMI software, and PLCs. In this webinar, we'll be discussing how industrial automation has evolved from point solution device communication to enterprise data strategy, understand why companies demand a single control plane for connectivity as a key component to their digital transformation strategy, get a preview into how Kepware anticipates responding to rapidly evolving needs for strategic connectivity in a hybrid SaaS ecosystem, and see a short sample of the product in action. And with that, I would like to actually turn it over to Kyle to kick us off. Kyle, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. And hello, everybody. So we'd like to first start off by giving a little bit of a history lesson through connectivity throughout the years and how Kepware has played a part throughout that history. So if we bring it back to the 90s, what you'll see in the industry is a lot of big automation companies that provide both hardware and software go to market with these big solutions. And while they were great, what ended up happening was the issue of potentially creating vendor lock-in, meaning that vendor A's technology would only work with vendor A's technology. There couldn't have that interoperability between software platforms and hardware devices. So what that means is that there was no way to create this best of breed approach for architecting industrial solutions. So what ended up happening about in the mid 1990s was the OPC Foundation started. OPC Foundation's whole claim to fame was, hey, let's solve this problem of interoperability. Now, where Kepware came in is we were actually a very, very early adopter of that OPC mindset and one of the earliest partners of OPC. So the beginning stages of Kepware, our whole value was we can connect these hardware devices from vendor A to vendor B software. So we continued to do that throughout the 90s and was focused more on very much a point-to-point solution. Again, at that time, that was the biggest challenge for connectivity, was just trying to get those control systems to talk to one another. Now, if we fast forward a little bit to the early 2000s to mid 2010s, what ends up happening now is you're starting to see the early stages of digital transformation as well as that IT/OT convergence. So what I mean by that is you're starting to have things like records or KPIs or other OEE type of data points starting to become digitized, starting to move to on-site databases, and then eventually up into the cloud. Now, where Kepware came in, is we started looking at this and saying, well, how can we help support this? So during that time frame, you started to see more of what we call the advanced plugins from Kepware. So you might see things like the data logger plugin, which allows Kepware to talk to SQL databases or any other ODBC type of databases. You also eventually saw our IoT gateway, which allowed that industrial data to be translated into protocols like MQTT that were cloud ready and ready to go for the cloud. Additionally, you started to see the demand for data from different types of devices to grow exponentially. meaning, hey, we're trying to get more than just, let's say, data from a packaging machine or a palletizer. You're now looking at things like, hey, how can I get data from my HVAC system? How can I get data from these, other distributed pump stations throughout my entire enterprise or out my entire territory? All that together really started to show like, hey, this demand for data started to grow exponentially more and more. Now, come 2016, the PTC actually acquired Kepware to be the native integration between the devices down the field up to their IoT platform called ThingWorx. Now, with that, again, that demand for data started to go up exponentially more and more, and suddenly you started to have a focus of connectivity became less about a point-to-point solution and became more of a growing enterprise style strategy. Now, with that, again, Kepware had evolved, but the interesting thing was the technology and the value point really didn't change that much. We were still the de facto, go-to connectivity solution, but rather how Kepware was being applied had started to change. So again, we went from a point-to-point solution of trying to get interoperability between hardware devices and software platforms to now, hey, how can I connect my factories globally together? How can I start seeing all of this data in one cohesive place? How can I start using that data to make better and more well-informed business decisions? Now, eventually, while that is great, and we started to, develop more enterprise-focused features as well as packaging, now the challenge becomes, well, great, I have connectivity to all my devices and into all of my factories, but how do I manage this large fleet of industrial connectivity servers? What does that look like? Can I get a single pane of glass? Can I go and start to view and configure from a large enterprise scale? And that's where we are today. And that's what we want to talk about, is how, going from that point-to-point solution to this enterprise strategy, how has Kepware evolved through that? So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Emily Griffin, who's going to take us through and talk about the newest feature or newest product from Kepware, being Kepware Plus.
Thanks so much, Kyle. We're really excited at Kepware to think about how the connectivity landscape has changed. And as Kepware has, really been the market leader in connectivity for over 2 decades, 2.5 decades at this point, we don't anticipate, going away from that model. And as you just heard from Kyle, our roots are in protocol translation, and we anticipate that continuing to be a market need well into the future. We don't anticipate our approach to connectivity there changing at all, but we're really excited about opportunities to evolve our product offering in support of customers that are thinking about and actually implementing scaled operations beyond a single point of connectivity or for a particular distinct project. Holistically, we're really looking forward to helping PTC drive its digital thread initiatives, with connectivity really being the cornerstone to getting data to any other area of a customer's applications, including an increased focus on customer experience and how enterprise customers really across the business are interacting with not just Kepware, but the entire landscape of PTC products. So when we think about that solution to, a hybrid SaaS model and what Kepware Plus means to that evolution in the market, it is a collection of SaaS capabilities that is going to enhance existing on-prem OT functions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. But we're able to leverage technologies like PTC's Atlas platform for infrastructure so that customers don't have to worry about hosting in their own environment. And we're really looking at some primary benefits like integrating silos where customers may have disparate teams spread across different geographies and, potentially around the world, not just disparate individual locations within let's say the United States or Europe or something like that. We're able to reduce the threat landscape when we are considering granting remote access to a server that needs something adjusted on it. And typically, what that means for customers is that Kepware might not always be the single software on that machine. And so if someone has remote desktop access, they can go in and potentially do a lot more harm than just needing to change, a particular property about a device or add a tag because they need to access some new data. And so really being targeted about who has what access in a single control plane reduces that landscape and the security threat immensely. And then we'll talk about the overhead cost in a few minutes as well. But when we think about, on-prem access to those machines, whether they're in a distinct location, they're virtual, there still is a lift there. And expertise can also be costly because there are less people that may have the knowledge to maintain those environments. And so providing a single place where anyone can access the same information in the same way through the same workflow every time. It's going to be quick, it's going to be easy, and there's a lot more oversight that can happen when we think about, who has access to that SaaS environment. So Kepware Plus as a product is really targeted to our connected enterprises that need a single interface and a single control plane across their automation landscape. That may be for a variety of installations across, a factory that has multiple lines. It could be for an international global operation that has, n number of places that they need to keep track of for all of their servers for their entire, global initiative. Leveraging PTC's cloud infrastructure and edge agent technology, we can successfully address the need for a hybrid SaaS solution by maintaining important security requirements when we think about connectivity in SaaS. You can see from this architecture that the servers themselves are still on-prem. So when I talked about that a couple of minutes ago, we don't anticipate that changing. There is always going to be an edge component, if you will, that will exist in the OT space. Kepware Plus is providing an overlay where the data is still moving through the OT environment as it traditionally has, from devices to applications with the server facilitating that flow. But Kepware Plus is enabling the configuration and management of that software. It's not storing the data. So we talked a couple minutes ago about time and security as concepts. Really, when we think about what that adds up to, the reality is sending a human out to the floor or even getting them remote access, right, can be a Herculean effort. And it could involve putting somebody on a plane, and that could take days. Not to mention, the cost of travel, the cost of them being away from the office, assuming that they do have the absolute skill set to make that trip. Or it could just mean getting them remote access with IT, which isn't always an easy task either. And so when we're talking about a single engineer or any number of engineers that need to just log in and make a quick change, not necessarily configuring a brand new server from the door, which is certainly, a separate topic, but we're really, focused around the day-to-day management aspect and the time saving and overhead savings there that can add up exponentially for something that should take 2 minutes or 3 minutes, right? Log in, go find the thing I need to update, do it, and log out, and I'm on to the next task. So it really adds up quickly depending on how often you're making those changes. And we think, when we think about Kepware being connected to a variety of environments. So that server could be used for maintenance purposes. It might be used for QA purposes. It might be feeding an IoT solution. And there are many disparate data needs across the business. If you compound all of those considerations for changes that might need to be made for different audiences, it's unbelievable how quickly those changes add up. Some customer proof points. It's great to, hear from Kyle and myself about how great we think the product is, but certainly, we're really excited to have something like this in the market, and folks that have spent a long time interacting with Kepware are certainly excited about that too. We have a variety of manufacturing and vertical customers that are saying things like, critical point at in their evolution to have a centralized way to control all of their instances. And while this initial go-to-market over the past 6 months where the product has launched is just the beginning, we're certainly excited to think about how this product will evolve over time to be truly that full feature set of capabilities that can support an entire enterprise. So with that said, we recently released our very latest update to the market a couple of weeks ago, and it really is focused around quite a large revision to our OPC UA approach in the market. And the OPC UA standard is something that Kepware has supported for quite a long time. You heard Kyle talk a little bit about that in his history review at the beginning. But this latest revision that launched in July is allowing us to really go after some more modern capabilities when we think about enhancing our support of that standard. And so our OPC UA gateway is going to do a variety of things, both when we think about data aggregation for rich and structured data, which Kepware today can't do. And we think about federation and securing of UA structured data throughout that enterprise as it pertains to where the data is going from the devices up to those various applications. So it is an extremely secure standard, which is one of the reasons many operations will standardize on it for its object models. And this particular feature, while you heard me talk about the server still doing all of the things that it does that users are used to when they think about Kepware, it's exclusively configured with Kepware Plus. So those on-prem servers will be OPC UA gateway enabled, and then Kepware Plus will do the configuration heavy lifting on the SaaS piece of that. And so that federated browsing that we're talking about is one of the most secure cross-site and firewall-friendly solutions that is in the market for accessing that data. The namespace aggregation is going to help customers optimize their performance across a large footprint of equipment for OPC UA. And then the many-to-many architecture is really going to extend a true tunnel functionality in support of, really combining legacy and much more modern devices that may have, updated OPC UA on board. From here, we are very excited to show you a product demo of Kepware Plus, and we will show a little bit of an introduction to the product itself at a high level, and then we'll also see a little bit of detail focused around this latest OPC UA release that was just launched, and certainly would invite anyone to bring their questions back toward the end of the webinar.
In this video, you'll look at Kepware Plus, a new PTC SaaS offering that enables remote configuration management for industrial automation. Kepware Plus manages and centralizes Kepware servers across the enterprise. This helps teams maximize efficiency across the factory floor control plane, reducing the need for on-site technicians and unsecure connectivity tools like remote desktop. When you log into Kepware Plus, you'll see a filterable list of all existing sites so you can easily organize your enterprise-wide deployment of Kepware instances. Kepware Plus is organized into sites where you can administer multiple Kepware servers. To add a Kepware server to a site, the server must be running an edge agent which works on Ubuntu and Windows. Adding new servers is easy. Kepware Plus will walk you through all the required configuration steps. You can now connect your Kepware server instances and remotely manage them from this single location. Servers are easy to configure. From here, you can edit and maintain your channels, devices, tags, and tag groups directly in Kepware Plus. Here, you can connect to a Kepware server with a pre-existing configuration. You can update this configuration from Kepware Plus by changing the scan rate on this tag. After saving, all changes propagate to the local system. Adding new channels and devices for Kepware drivers is simple, like adding a tool to monitor tightening and tension results. After selecting the torque tool protocol for this channel, you can add a new device and its required information like its name and model. After adding your new device, you can add tags to monitor its data, including a serial number and last tightening result. These changes aren't just shown in KepServer. They're also reflected in any connected client applications like ThingWorx. The newest version of Kepware Plus and ThingWorx Kepware Server includes the addition of the UA Gateway. The UA Gateway enables aggregation, federation, and securing of OPC UA structured data. It is installed as a separate service from the Kepware runtime and is configured exclusively with Kepware Plus. Within the Kepware Plus environment, users have the ability to create both server and client connections. Here, we can see the user creating an OPC UA server endpoint for an OPC UA client to connect to. As you can see, there are enhanced encryption methods available in the UA Gateway. With the endpoint created, the user is now attempting to connect the OPC UA client to the UA Gateway. Note the matching authentication and encryption settings. As expected, the initial connection will fail due to an untrusted certificate. The certificate store for the UA Gateway can be accessed through Kepware Plus as seen here. With the certificates trusted, a connection is now established to the UA Gateway. The UA Gateway also has the ability to be configured as an OPC UA client that can connect to downstream OPC UA servers. A common use case for this technology can be found in tunneling applications through a firewall in a DMZ. Similar to the OPC UA server endpoint configuration, we can see the various authentication and encryption methods, as well as a field for the OPC UA server URL. Once the client is configured, the certificates must be trusted on both sides. Here we can see the UA Gateway client certificate trusted in a downstream instance of Kepware. We can also see the server certificate trusted. And now we can see an established OPC UA client connection from the UA Gateway to a downstream server. In this video, we've seen how Kepware Plus provides an easy, cloud-based solution for remotely configuring and managing your Kepware servers. With Kepware Plus, companies can reduce the need to dispatch on-site technicians or connect to individual machines, resulting in significant time and cost savings.
Thank you so much for that show and tell and for such a great demo. We are really excited. You've heard me say a couple times during this webinar that, kind of the world is our oyster when we think about SaaS. We have a collection of capabilities that we are planning over, I would say a multi-year time horizon for this product. You can see on this slide a modernized OPC UA approach And that is something that we will continue to build on as well going forward. So this, this latest product update isn't it. And so the same thing goes for thinking about Kepware Plus and how Kepware shows up to the SaaS world in the market, and the kinds of things our enterprise customers are focused around when we think about upgrading 10 or 50 or 500 servers in some cases, right? Traditionally, the market could take years to upgrade those servers, and that's a major security concern. So how do we alleviate some of that pain for our customers, enabling them to really have a low touch way to get the latest and greatest update to their servers in that environment? How, might we provide customers with visibility to their licenses and their user administration, audit information, right? You have a line that might not be responding, and you find out that's because somebody had access to that server and removed something that they weren't supposed to, and now it's not working anymore. So those are things that we hear from customers all the time. Those are things that we're really excited to start to iterate on with Kepware Plus when we consider enterprise-focused dashboarding, in addition to, actual functional capabilities where you can do interactions with those servers. And the blue section on this slide, from a directional standpoint, is really to give folks an understanding of the things that we have actively under research and defining additional requirements with customers that are really excited about this product as well. So the beauty of SaaS is that sometimes the on-prem components will require updates in order to take advantage of capabilities, but a lot of times they won't. And so if we have a new dashboard that we can release out to customers as soon as it's ready, we're going to be able to do that. And customers can start getting immediate value as we build those things into the product. It also means that we can think about ways to iterate on some of these larger themes to deliver that value to customers incrementally over time. So instead of, waiting 6 to 12 months for a full, fledged solution, we can take some of that feedback, start to implement it, start to build it, get those rapid loops going with the customer, and then, really come back and make it better, make it, more user friendly, and continue to refine those deliveries with an active feedback loop.
Great. Thanks, Emily. And now I'd like to open it up for questions.